Hi and welcome back to Darvanalee Designs Studio. For those that don't know, my name's Nicole Reid and today we're here for another great sewing tutorial. We're doing another take on the project bag. Today we're going to add a wristlet to it. So let's get started. So today, as I said, we are here to make a project bag. I've been asked for a tutorial on how to add a wristlet to the project bags that I already have on the channel. So if you want to see the original video where I show you how to make a vinyl project bag, you can find that carded up the top here, and you'll also find it linked down below. You'll also find it in a playlist with bags and more, I think it's called. So today we are just going to be running through very quickly on how to make the vinyl bag. I'm not going to go into great detail. If you want great detail, then head to that original video and I explain everything there, even how to make your bags a little bit bigger and everything like that. But today we're adding a wristlet to the bag. Alright, so this is a medium-sized bag, and today I'm going to be working with the same measurements that I worked with in the other one, and our vinyl piece needs to be 15 inches wide by about 8 to 10 inches in height. So if you've got a piece that's only 8 inches, you will get away with this. Mine is measuring about 8.5 inches, and that will give me a little bit extra to trim off so I know that it's nice and even along the bottom. You're going to need your backing fabric, okay, and your backing fabric is actually larger than your lining fabric by 2 inches. Again, if you want to see how and what sizes and everything like that, head over to that original video and you will find that there. So today for our one, I've got it at 17 inches by 12 inches high. Okay, there is no interfacing or anything on this. I find it very easy to use it without interfacing. It's not really necessary. Save yourself some money. The next piece that we're going to need, and this is the piece that is seen through our vinyl front, okay, is our what I refer to as a lining. Now, our lining has a fusible fleece on it, and just follow the manufacturer instructions. There's many fusible fleeces out there. I will leave some links down below of where you can find the products. There's always links there for that sort of stuff. If there isn't any link there, then it means that I cannot find the product. Okay, so basically you want to have this at 15 inches by 10 inches. And then there's a couple of other things that we're going to need as well. We're going to need a strip of fabric that is 5 inches wide. Now it's a little bit wider than my original one. My original one I said 4.5 inches, but I find that the 5 inches helps the zip to lay a little bit flatter, and it just gives us a little bit more fabric at the front to showcase the lovely fabrics that we've got. So this is actually 5 inches by 15 inches, and then it is just folded in on itself like so. And you can see all the instructions on how to do that in that original video. Then this is our top piece that goes at the top of our bag, and this is 3.5 inches. Again, I think this is slightly bigger. I've just got a ruler now that I use, and it's 3.5 inches, and that's what I stick to. And again, it gives us a little bit more fabric at the top to help get those papers and everything in. Okay, so that is 15 inches by 3.5 inches. And again, this has got interfacing on it. Both of these do. Okay, and I like to use Shapeflex 101 or Violene if you're here in Australia and you're struggling to get Shapeflex 101, because I know it can be difficult sometimes. And also Legacy from Spotlight is another good option as well. And I prefer the woven over the actually, it doesn't really matter what interfacing you use as long as you can sew through it and it's not too thick. That's why woven is a good option. You're also going to need a zip. I'm using a number 3 zip today. This is just a regular dress zip that I've got. And then we're going to need some hardware, bag hardware. And I'm just using what I've got here today. This is a 12 millimeter, or it is a 1/2 inch. I just had to measure it then. A 1/2 inch D-ring is what they're usually called. This one is a solid D-ring. This is a flat one. This is probably not something that I would normally use on a project bag because it's a little bit more expensive than the other ones, but I will leave links down below where you can find all this stuff. And you'll also want to have a lobster clasp, which is also a swivel. Okay, and this one is a 25mm or 1 inch. 25mm. Yes, 1 inch, sorry. My math is not that crash up. It doesn't matter what sort of D-ring. You can even use an O-ring if you want to, if that's all you've got. If you don't have them, I will leave links down below where you can get all of that, all those supplies. Then we're going to need to cut a couple of extra pieces of fabric. Now, this is 3.5 inches by 14 inches, and this is for our wristlet. And we are just going to put some interfacing on the back of that, and then we'll fold it in half to get our center crease, and then we're going to fold that on each other, and then we will sew 1/8 of an inch either side of our little wristlet. But we'll come to more detail of that in just a moment. And we also need something for our D-ring. So this is, I believe it's 2 inches. Yep, 2 inches by 2 inches by 2.5 inches. Can't speak today. And again, this is folded in half and then in on itself, so all our raw edges are completely hidden. You're also going to need some wonder clips, maybe a pen. You're going to need a rotary cutter and just some general sewing supplies. And I like to use my clapper, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do with our wristlet strap just with that. Okay, so grabbing your ironing pad, basically you've got your 14-inch strip, which is 3.5 inches, and we are going to fold it in on itself, and we're going to press. Once you've pressed it, I like to set that seam to make it very visible to myself, and I'll use my clapper and hold that on for a couple of seconds. Then after I've done that down the entire length of the wristlet strap, I'll bring one side into that center fold, and I'll press that. And then using my clapper, I will hold that into place, and I will continue down the rest of the wristlet strap. Then I'm going to bring my other raw edge into the center. Now I'm not going to fold them over on one another. I'm going to have them just meeting, and you can see there's just a tiny, tiny little gap, maybe 1 millimeter, 2 millimeter gap in there. Okay, and then I'll press that. And the reason that I don't have it coming over one another is because it makes it easier to fold it back on itself. And I'll do that down the length of the wristlet strap. Next, I'm going to fold them on top of one another. So now our raw edges are completely hidden. And again, I will press that, making sure that my folded edges are lining up. And then I will put my clapper onto that, hold that in place, and you can see it just holds together really nicely. Okay, so I'll just run this down. And then I'm going to fold it in on itself. And again, I'll use my clapper. Okay, so once that's folded in on itself, we need to grab our swivel hook, and we're going to place that on to our wristlet. Okay, and next what we're going to do is we're just going to open up our ends again. And with the right sides facing one another and without twisting it, we're going to line up our raw edges. And then we'll just pop a pin in. And I like to line up my creases because then I know that it's laying, it's going to lay flat when I close it back up again. Okay, so now that that is pinned in place, what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the sewing machine, and using a 1/4 inch seam allowance, back stitching at the beginning and at the end, we're going to stitch straight across there. Okay, so we've sewn that. Just remove your pins, and then we're just going to snip off our long threads, and then we're going to open that up. This is a little bit tricky. We're going to press this seam open. Okay, and you can do this finger press with your fingernail, or you can get your little iron in there and sort that out. Okay, so once that is now open, you are able to fold that back in on itself. So just on our sides, and I just work at the seam where I've just sewn and pressed it. It just helps it to come back together. And then we will fold it in on itself, making sure that we've got it going the right way. You can see that there. All right, so that's looking pretty good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my swivel hook around and just make sure that everything is lining up. I've brought it around to where that seam is because I've already pressed there, and then I'm just going to press everywhere here, make sure that it's all lined up nicely, and I can see that it is. And now that is ready to take to the sewing machine and stitch down. All right, so we are going to do 1/8 of an inch on either side. We're also going to take our little piece here. Now, because this is for our D-ring, because this is quite fiddly, I just like to grab my basted glue. I don't necessarily do it on the wrist strap because this is quite easy to handle, and I can handle it quite I can just get my tailor's awl to help it through and stuff like that, and it's not going to move that much on me. If you think it is going to move, by all means use some of the basted glue. There's nothing wrong with using it. And then I just put a couple of dots, and we don't need to turn our ends in on this one or sew it together. So we'll just line that up and press that down. And what that does is that's just going to hold your two pieces together, and it's going to stop it from separating because it's a little bit smaller, and it's going to go right underneath your presser foot. It could move on you a little bit. And if you're going to do it to your wristlet, all you do is just open that up and put a couple of drops in. It's just one of the tools that I like to use. And as I said, I don't always do it with the wristlet strap, but you might find it easy, especially if you haven't done them before. And you can see that that's not coming apart. And so I'll just continue doing that all the way around. And I just put a little bit here, a little bit there, and just pinch it together. If you don't have the glue, just use wonder clips to hold it in place, and you just remove those wonder clips as you're going around. As you can see, I'm not using a great deal of it. Just putting a little bit here and a little bit there, and that's just going to help me hold it in place. So once you have got that all lined up again and pressed and all folded in on itself, what you're going to do is you're going to just head to the sewing machine, and you're going to sew 1/8 of an inch down either side of those. And we're also going to sew our zip as well. So we have our folded piece that is just folded in half, and then we have a piece that has been folded similar to the way our wristlet has been done. Now all we need to do is grab our zip, and we place that. I just place these in the middle. I don't worry about my zipper pull or anything at the moment. And you can use your regular presser foot for this, or you can put your zipper foot on. It's entirely up to you. I tend to put my zipper foot on at this point, because from this point on, it's pretty much going to be, after we've done these, it's pretty much going to be the only foot that you use. And I think I forgot to mention that at the beginning, because I referred you to the other video, which I do mention it in there. All right, so I'm going to grab all of my components, head over to the sewing machine, and start stitching these all down. Okay, so what we need to do is we need to do 1/8 of an inch. So we're going to just leave our regular foot on, and like always, I have my washi tape here on my machine to give me that guidance. And then we don't need to back stitch this at the beginning and at the end, because this is actually going to be caught up in our seam allowance underneath our binding. And we just turn that around and we come back the other way. Okay, so we can take that out, and you can see there that we've just got 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. All right, the next one that we're going to do is our wristlet strap. So you can take off your wonder clips at this point if you want to. And if you've got a removable toolbox, I suggest that you do that, because it makes it nice and easy. And then I just start around at the where I sewed the two short ends together. Okay, and I will put my needle in the down position, and then I will slowly start, but I am not going to backstitch until I get back to where I started. Okay, and we're just going to do 1/8 of an inch all the way around. Making sure that our folded edges are lining up nicely. And then once I get back to the seam, I'll just slow down a bit because it is a bit bulky in there. I will just do a back stitch and remove that from there. Grab our thread snips. Get rid of all our long threads. Okay, so you can see there that that is now top stitched into place and it's not going to come undone. And then we're just going to do exactly the same thing for the other side. Okay, so now we've got our little wristlet strap, that's all sewn down. Now what we need to do is bring our swivel hook around to where our seam is, and then we're just going to fold that over the top, lining it up. So you can see there it's lined up, and I find that the Wonder Clips really help with this. Okay, so once you've got that all sorted, we're going to just stitch straight across. Okay, and I just line that up underneath my presser foot, and I'll just do a back stitch at the beginning, and a back stitch at the end. And there we go. That has now secured our seam that we created when we put our two short ends together. That's now underneath there and it's not going to move, and our lobster clasp is actually now secured in place. If you want it to be a little bit tighter, you can get a little bit closer, but just for demonstration purposes today, I've just used the width of my presser foot. A zipper foot is really good for doing this, and you can also create a box. If this was for a handbag, because it would be getting used more frequently than a project bag, I would then do a box with an X in it. Okay, so if you want to do that, you can go right ahead and do that, and all you do is you just stitch from here to here and go around and then corner to corner. All right, so the next step is to put our zipper foot on, and then we will be doing our zipper. Okay, so we have our zipper and we have our two pieces that we need to sew on. I'm going to start with my top piece, and basically all I'm going to do is sew this on. And I just lay it on top, and then I bring it my underneath my presser foot, and then I'm just going to stitch that into place. But to help me, so when I'm adjusting or anything like that, you can use pins, you can put some glue, you can use double-sided tape, whatever you find easier to use, that's fine. But I just hold it myself and just, yeah, and I just eyeball it. I find a spot on the zip. I don't want my fabric too close to the zip, and so I just sort of eyeball it as I'm going along. I put my needle in the down position, and that helps. So you can see here now it's not going to move, and I can adjust. Okay, and then I will just do a couple of stitches and then do a back stitch and then continue on. Okay, so that's now sewn on, and now what we're going to do is put our other piece on. So you want the fold to go to the zipper teeth, okay? And I just line them up. Again, just eyeballing it. The zipper in the down position, and then I will stitch that along. And again, I don't want to get too close to, like I don't want it butting up right up against the zipper teeth. I want it to be a little ways from it, and that way the zipper is going to work correctly and it's not going to get stuck in the fabric or anything like that. Okay, so we've now got all our bits and pieces sewn together. We just need to get rid of all our long threads away from our zip. Okay, make sure nothing's going to get caught up in it. All right, at this point I can cut off this end and get rid of that. And then I'm just going to move my zipper pull into the middle of the bag, and I will just snip that off, and I will pop a wonder clip there because there's been plenty of times where I've zipped it right off and we don't want to do that. And the same again on your wristlet, get rid of all of your long threads. Gets rid of that, and the same for a little D-ring. All right, so now that we've got all this together, what we need to do is just set our D-ring tab and our wristlet aside, and we're still going to be working with this piece here. We're going to grab our vinyl, and this is where the double-sided tape comes in very handy. We're just going to peel one side off first, and then we're going to open this up and we're going to slide this in, and we're going to line it up as best as we can. Now you're going to put it a little ways in, okay, and you just press that down, and that is going to hold it there in place. Okay, and then on that top bit, take that paper off and then press this down. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to head back to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch that down. Now you can use your zipper foot, as you will see, so you don't need to change feet. All right, let's head over there. Okay, so we're back at the sewing machine, and now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch down our vinyl. And all we're going to do for that is I'm going to have my vinyl off to the left because I find that that's the easiest way to stitch it. So you can see there that the vinyl's over this way. It doesn't stick or anything to my machine, and I can easily feed this through because the fabric is on the feed dogs. Now, if you are having trouble, you may need a Teflon foot, but I have never, I can honestly say never used a Teflon foot for my project bags. However, I will leave a link down below where you can get a container of all the different presser feet that I may use throughout my videos, and they're great. Like the zipper foot that I've got on here is adjustable and it fits most sewing machines, so you can adjust it to the width that you need it and stuff like that. So keep an eye out down the bottom, down in the show notes for that link. It is a brilliant pack and it's well worth the money. All right, so I'm just going to put my needle in the down position, and then we're just going to start stitching. And I'm putting my presser foot as close as I can without going off the fabric to the edge. And I'll do a back stitch. And a back stitch at the end. All right, so that is now our vinyl sewn in. Now we'll head back over to the cutting mat and we'll do our final assembly. Okay, so we've sewn that in and we've trimmed off all our long threads and everything like that. The next thing that we want to do is we want to grab our lining fabric, and that is the piece of fabric that had the fusible fleece on it, and we're going to align our top edges of our zipper and also our lining together, and grab a couple of wonder clips and just pop that on. Okay, we'll do any trimming that needs to be done at this point. Okay, so you can see here that this down here is okay. It's a little bit wonky, but we can trim that up. And the side just needs to be trimmed up a little bit on both sides, because we don't want our vinyl and our zipper going too far out to the side, because it'll make it hard to put our backing piece on. So just grab a ruler and your rotary cutter and line up your straight edge of your bottom of your bag. You might have to move a wonder clip or two. Hold everything in place, and then we're just going to square that up. So you want your bag to be about 15 inches wide. It may come into 14 3/4 if you've gone a little bit wonky with your sewing. Okay, might tend to be between 14 3/4 and 15 1/4 when I do them. Okay, so you can see there that down the bottom here is all straight. So now I can put some wonder clips on these areas here. And also down the bottom here. So I know nothing is going to move on me when I trim it up over this side. Okay, so all I'm going to do now is, again, I'm going to line up the bottom of my bag and the side that I just cut, and I can see that that's nice and square. Everything's lining up nicely. Okay, and then I can just bring this up, and I need to cut only a little bit off. So I'm only going to cut about 1/8 of an inch. So I'm just lining everything up. My ruler, I'm using the lines on my cutting mat, and that's just going to take a little bit off for me. And I go slow through the zip because we don't want to have an accident with the rotary cutter. And then I will just pop that wonder clip back on that zip so I do not unzip it by accident. Okay, and then I continue putting the wonder clips all the way around. So now our bag is nice and even all the way around, which is absolutely fabulous. We didn't have to trim too much off. More thumbs today, can't pick up the wonder clips. All right, so get rid of your rulers and your rotary cutter and all that sort of stuff. We don't need that now. Next thing you want to do is you want to grab your label, if you're putting a label on, and also your little tab for your D-ring, and place your D-ring on there. And then just fold that in half. And then you'll just grab a wonder clip because it makes it easy to hold it together. And then just on this side here, because my zipper pulls over here, so I want my wristlet strap to be the opposite side, and about 1/8 of an inch up from where that stitching is. So we want that to be just a little bit past, because what we're going to do is we're going to baste that into place, and then we can trim it up. And then that means that when we baste it, we're not going to miss any edges or anything like that. We're going to get the entire thing in. All right, next thing that we're going to do is we're going to slip our label under if you've got a label. If you don't, doesn't matter. All right, so now that I've got everything in place, I'm just going to go and baste this into place, and I'm just going to use 1/8 of an inch seam allowance on that. Okay, so we've stitched that in place, so you can see there that that's nice and secure, and now I'm just going to take that excess off. Now remember, I moved it past there because that means that I was going to catch both my edges, because sometimes if you put it right to the edge, the bottom one can move and then it won't grab. Okay, so make sure that that's nice and flush with the edge of your bag. You might have to have 2 passes at it, but you can see there that that's not going to go anywhere. And then once we put our binding on, it definitely won't go anywhere. All right, the next thing that we need to do is just set this aside for a moment and grab our backing fabric. Now remember, your backing fabric needs to be 2 inches bigger on the width and the height of whatever your lining fabric is. And as I said, I explained that all in the video that I done originally. All right, next, once we've got that down and you've pressed that, we're not putting any interfacing on this. We are just going to pop our lining and our zipper part down, and you can see it's larger all the way around. And basically what I do is I just sort of use the lines on my cutting mat to eyeball it into place, okay? And then all I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it, because I find it easier to turn it. And then I'm going to come over to this side, because this for some reason is where I always start. And then I'm just going to fold our like just crease it with your fingers. And then the top one, I'm also going to do the same thing. I'm going to crease that with my fingers, but I'm going to roll the top over first. And those creases just make it easier when we're lining up our corners. Next, we will just pop our wonder clip on there, and then we're going to take our corner and we're going to bring it down and create what looks like a little triangle, like a little doggy when you're reading a book. But I'm not going to come all the way down to the edge of my fabric. I'm going to stop about 1/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to bring our raw edge over, and I'm going to bring that in. And again, you might have to finger press it a couple of times. I tend to keep the iron away from it. And then I'm going to fold that over on itself, and you can see we get a nice mitered corner. Okay, and then what I will do is I will just hold that with my nail, grab a wonder clip and pop that into place, and then I'm just going to roll that over and use my wonder clips all the way down. Okay, and we'll do exactly the same at this end here as well. And you want to make sure that everything's sitting nice and flat, nothing's curled up. Okay, so now that we've got all that done, what we need to do is head over to the sewing machine and we're going to stitch this down. So let's head over. All right, so now what we're going to do is we are going to stitch down our binding. That's what I love about this. It's all inclusive, and once it's done, I don't have to sew it again. All right, so the first thing that we want to do is take our first wonder clip off, which is at our mitered corner. Using our fingers, just hold it in place and then bring it under our presser foot, like so. And then I've got my presser foot set so I can just run it along the edge, and I know that it's going to catch all of my binding all the way down. I'm going to put my needle in the down position, and that makes it super easy for when we need to turn or anything like that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to slowly, but we're not going to backstitch. Remember, we do not backstitch until we get back there. And I'm just going to get my tailor's awl, and I'm just going to hold my binding as I come up to that little D-ring tab. Now, you want to take it slow because you are going through a fair chunk of thickness here. Okay, and I just hold that and help it through, but go nice and slow. Okay, I'm not going to worry about backstitching because we've backstitched it into place anyway. And then when we come to the zipper, we want to go nice and slow over that as well. It's probably a little bit faster than I should have went. And then we can just start stitching. Now I just use my fingers and my tailor's awl as I go, removing the wonder clips and just keeping it nice and slow and even. And as I come up to the corner where I'm going to be removing both of my wonder clips, using my fingers, I hold this bottom one in place, and then my tailor's awl, I will just help move that back under and hold that in place, just like so. And then I will come up holding everything in place so we've still got that nice mitered corner, and then I will slowly sew up to it until I catch that corner. Once I've caught that corner, I will come one more stitch, I will do a back stitch, and then I'll come up to that corner again, and just as I get onto it, the next part of the binding, I will turn with my needle in the down position, and then I'll do 1 or 2 stitches and then do a back stitch and then continue on. And I'm going to do that for every single corner, including where I started. I will finish like that. So we've sewn all that down. Now what you want to do is you just want to make sure that you get rid of all your long threads so they're not going to get caught up in your zip or anything like that. As I said, if you want to see a very, like how to make the actual bag, I've pretty much gone through it, but if you want more detail, you can head over to that other video and you can watch that. And I go into more detail on how to make your bags bigger and stuff like that, all the tips and tricks and everything. You get lots more close-ups of what's happening with the mitered corner and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, so just go over, watch that first, and then you can come back and use this as a supplementary video on how to do the wristlet. But that is our bag, and then all we need to do is add our little wristlet on, and then it is ready to use. All right, so that's our little project bag with a wristlet. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate you being here. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and adding a simpler wristlet to your project bag. They're great, especially if you like to hang your project bags. I know a lot of people do like to hang them up in their wardrobes to keep them out of the sun or any sort of light or anything like that, to keep their projects nice and safe along with their flossers. But if you've made it this far, don't forget to leave me a sewing needle emoji down below and leave me a comment and tell me what you thought. And did you go and watch the original video as well? I'd love to know if you've watched that. If you've made it this far and you've yet to subscribe, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the little bell icon beside it, and then that way you're not going to miss out on any future crafty uploads. But that's it from me today. Have a wonderful day and happy sewing, everybody, and I'll see you all again next time. Bye for now.